All right, SuperCoaches, strap in. Welcome to the official AFL SuperCoach podcast, your in and out guide to the greatest game on earth. That's right, AFL SuperCoach. We've got round 13 in the bag, round 14 to preview. It is a bit of bye-week carnage, I'll tell you that much. I'm your host, Jaymz Clements, and joining me today, three of the greatest minds in the SuperCoach orbit. I love that. We've got Patch over there in his MND beanie.
Hello. I mean, the celebrities going down the slide weren't the only thing that froze this weekend.
I like that.
Our SuperCoach teams, ice cold, baby, ice cold.
What's colder than ice? Ice cold. We've also got the guru himself. He's back. Al Paton. What's going on, Al?
Yeah, it's nice to be back. That was the easy buy round, guys. So I hope we all had a nice relaxing time.
I've actually got, I sucked this week and I've got no one playing this week. This is awesome. Anyway, we also got the Phantom on the chat Bubble Boys later on. And this show is, of course, brought to you by SuperCoach Plus. Follow live SuperCoach scores on game day. See all the break-evens, projected scores. Dominate the buys with the buy planner. Didn't help me this week, I'll tell you that much. And check out all the show notes here for a link to subscribe. You can check out these jokers on Twitter as well. Was it Al_Superfooty?
Correct.
Nice one. And Patch to the max.
Hello.
Let's get into it. Round 13. The rap and the heroes and villains. Score check. Oh, God. So now the official AFL SuperCoach account has, the tweet going, just explain your week in a GIF. And I'm like, okay, here's the Team America spewing GIF. That summed up my week perfectly. I scored 17-25 and wanted to put my head into a wall. What happened during our live stream, Al? Well, prior to it, I decided, what was it? Daicos captain over Gulden. That'll be smart. Wrong. So my heroes, Stupid Sexy Flanders, absolutely fantastic week for him. Crushed it in a horrible game of football that wanted to, you watch that game, you're like, I could also just gouge out my eyes. This would be just as fun. He scores 152 though. That was fantastic. I'm feeling good. Zach Fisher rips off a 120. I'm like, I made the right trade. And then it all fell apart because my villains were basically everybody else. Nick Vlaston letting down the Ginger team. He's killing me here, Al. He's killing me. Your beloved Tigers, they stink. They got a win and he sucked. What are we doing? He had 51. It was brutal. Even Nick Martin, your beloved Nick Martin here, Patch. 92. Breaking my heart.
Sorry, continue. I don't want to interrupt the flow.
Sam Walsh, 87. Oh, God. It just gets worse. Tom Green, 79. Even my sort of, just the Charlie Comptons of the world, right? The 32. That just was a one last kick in the guts. But either way, it was absolute carnage in my team this week, Al, and I just don't feel great. At least Isaac Heaney still had 116. But otherwise, it sucked. How'd you go?
I kind of feel bad for saying I had a really good weekend. I think...
Let's go to Patch then. Patch, you sucked as well.
I also had a bad weekend. It sucked. It was terrible. I had 1865, which just didn't feel like a lot when some people were scoring over 2,000 or 2,100. Just no one turned up. I had like three guys score more than 115 or so. Flanders was one of them, as you mentioned. Harry Sheasel was good on return, quote-unquote return to my side. Not that I ever didn't have him. But my hero for the week was legally contracted to say Brodie Grundy.
Well, you had the VC on him, right?
Yeah, about that. I did say it, and then I went, well, Bont worked for me last week. I'd be stupid to, fly, spit into the face of God and spurn a Marcus Bontempelli VC under the roof at Marvel on a Friday night. Why would I stress all weekend about having to deal with a captain when last week I didn't have to think about it and it was fine? And turns out, not fine. Fine was not a thing that it was. So no, I should have. Next time he plays at the SCG, I will. But no. So Brodie Grundy was the hero. The villains were most of the players you mentioned, James. I'm not going to repeat them again. Their names don't deserve to be said again. I will add Matt Rowell to the list of gingers letting the team down, though. It
is brutal. We could also really throw Alex Neal-Bullen in there as well as a villain. Why is that, you might ask? Not many people have him in SuperCoach. Well, he did a number on Nick Daicos, limiting him to 64. And Darcy Cameron's knee could be the other one as well, because he put it in, was it Darcy Moore's knee?
Darcy Moore's knee
into the guts of Christian Petrarca and sent him to the hospital. They both scored 64 out. That's not great.
I mean, also the Collingwood coaching staff for deciding that, Melbourne for being bad and meaning Nick Daicos didn't have to come back on in the last quarter and score just a couple more points would have made me feel better about things. Nick Daicos for not turning around and saying, I'm the best player in the game, stuff you, I'm going back out there. The list goes on. Sorry, Al, please talk about some nice things.
Lift the vibe here, Al. Come on, make us feel good.
We are just harshing the place. And
I finished with a 2.025 this week, and I think my year, it's sort of a bit of the tale of the year that I haven't been shooting the lights out necessarily, but I've just been getting good scores every week. Generally making decent trades. I brought in LDU this week, scored 115 or so. So, it wasn't Lockie Neal, it wasn't an Errol Gulden, which our friend Tim was celebrating that trade. But
for the first time, Tim has traded someone in and they haven't broken.
Yeah, that was amazing.
So Errol, incredible.
Incredible, obviously, against the Cats. But my villain is someone you haven't actually mentioned yet. I held on to Darcy Wilson thinking, I know he's got a high break even, but I back him in. He's averaging about 80-something in his last 5 games back at Marvel Stadium. I reckon he can go close to that and he'll be really handy for us during the buys, DPP, all that stuff. At halftime, he had literally not touched the ball. And watching the game, I hadn't even seen him on the screen. I'm not sure what was going on there. Managed to get, I think, up to about 10 touches in the second half. Finished on 25 points, lost 35 grand. He's going to lose probably another 30 or 40 this week. So that's a real dilemma because I don't want to be trading out a guy who's actually playing, but I don't want to lose another 30 or 40,000 either on a rookie. So that's something I'm going to have to toss up this week.
Tough one. We actually are going to talk about some ideas of what we could be doing with underperforming folks.
Are people phoning them in? Because I sure as hell don't have any.
All right, SuperCoach news, injuries, suspensions very easily. Like we've got the 2 massive names coming out of yesterday's game. Nick Daicos with a shin injury. Petrarca ended up in hospital having surgery.
Ruptured spleen.
Lacerated spleen, punctured lung, 4 broken ribs.
That's probably not great.
No, I'm not a doctor,
but
not a medical doctor.
Well, any kind of doctor. But yeah, that doesn't sound good. Not fun.
I mean, it's not even just SuperCoach vibes, but you're like, at what point do you even go, I should play football again after this? That's horrifying. Like, that is absolutely terrifying. So the Petrarca SuperCoach situation, he dropped substantially this week with that 64 down to 519,000. So in terms of the fall in primos, it makes it a little bit tougher to jump him up to somebody, but Errol Gulden is sitting right there. Outside of that, the Daicos one, the 64, that he had been obviously flying, so that was okay. So you don't have to worry too much. You just basically want to sit there and watch that injury news, right, Al?
Yeah, well, obviously because of the round 14, 15 coming up, 2 probably toughest buy rounds, we really need everybody on deck. And Daicos did say, as you pointed out, that the Collingwood medical or coaching staff decided that, the game's basically done. You can sit out the rest. And he was very confident that he'll pull up all right. Obviously, we want to see how the scans and everything come up. But Kangaroos, is there any chance they could just say, have another week off and then you got the bye the week after?
I mean, potentially, but I don't think Nick Daicos is the sort of player that will take that lying down and they'd have to physically chain him to their training deck or chain him to somewhere else or take him for a drive out in the woods and then open the door and be like, run, boy, you're free.
You're free now.
That's about the only way you'd stop him from beating up on North Melbourne on the weekend. So,
especially when he's sitting there probably eyeing off his position in a Brown, though, just saying.
Yeah, that's also a not insignificant factor. Yeah. He didn't look too hampered when he ran off. He was hobbling and limping noticeably, but not to the point where I was concerned, just he's got a knock, he'll be fine.
And I think it was more like a kick on the front of the shin rather than in the calf, which can sort of get a bit nastier, so hopefully.
I would be very surprised if he didn't play this weekend.
I'm not as confident on Will Dawson, traded in by 55,000 SuperCoaches over the last 2 weeks, scored 0, subbed out finished the game with his arm in a sling. So we'll wait and see what the diagnosis is there. But he's another one we can probably cross off as a buy number in the next couple of rounds.
Yeah, I'll give you the hot take on his diagnosis. Bad. as not a doctor.
You got to appreciate the break even though of what Will Dawson was at because he scored 0 and still went up in price. There's nothing nicer than that. At least he ran out there.
I mean, him scoring 80 and going up by a lot more would have been nicer.
Would have been nicer, but he still rose 20,000. So it's at least you got something out of that trade if you were one of the 55,000, including myself, who did bring him in. So it's faint mercies, but you'll take it.
I don't think you can trade him though. What's he got up to? One?
It's 137. I think.
Yeah, exactly. So he's probably at least he's got that dual position swing. Especially if you've got a Zach Fisher, you've got an Alex Sexton, he can help move those guys around.
So you're rolling
for cover.
donuts at the moment.
He's probably at least still has some value sitting there, not actually playing.
Nice one. Any other injury suspensions that you want to hit on there, Al, or was that it?
I think that's the big ones.
All right, good. Let's move on to the biggest talking points. After round 13, this is the week we've all been waiting for. With bated breath, terrified expressions on our face, just planning in advance, surely. Haven't we all been planning in advance for this horrible bye week? I certainly haven't. Oh, God. It only gets worse for me because this week, Al, on the bye, we have Gold Coast, Carlton, Geelong, Essendon, Melbourne, and West Coast. That's not great. That's a lot
too many teams.
That's probably
too many teams.
We probably could have used two of those this week.
Please eliminate 3, not a crackpot.
That means Max Gawn, who is in 58% of teams, is missing. Sam Flanders, stupid sexy Flanders, who just saved my week, 57%. Sam Walsh in 40% of teams. Alex Sexton, 37%. Sam Closey, 37%. Nick Martin, 29%. Matt Rowell, 25%. Tom Stewart and Took Miller, both in 24% as well. That is a lot of big names, Al, that are missing. What do we do? What do we do?
Well, the other thing that makes it sort of complicated, like you mentioned Closey there, but there's not a heap of rookies who are missing this week. Maybe if you've still got a Jake Rogers sitting on your bench like I do, but again, he's a bit like, he's gone up a little bit more than Will Dawson, but not by that much. Will Graham, similar. Jai Clark, like it's not, ideally you want to be cashing in guys who are coming into their bye, but none of those, apart from Closey, are really worth all that much. So I'm looking at potentially moving on someone who has the bye in round 15 because I've got a heap of those guys, Collingwood and Bulldogs especially, a lot of rookies. So maybe a Lockie Sullivan or a Darcy Wilson. Saints have the bye that week. Maybe you could trade them out this week. But
well, and we'll chat to the Phantom about that. But some of the guys we might be trading in have that bye anyway, so it might not ruin the balance. So
you trade someone out who's not going to play and bring someone in who's not going to play.
It's horses for horses. If the
donuts
courses are bad,
donuts
for donuts. It's a predicament and it's really annoying. And we're not in a position where we can be trading in non-playing donuts just to kind of swing things around because we don't have the cover. We don't have the enough teams playing each week for the next 2 weeks. It's really annoying, and I'd like the AFL to do something about it.
It is frustrating how the buys do get weighted, but we did know that this one was coming, and that's one of the great things about SuperCoach Plus. You can literally check out your buys, see what you've got on field in that round. And my round 14 always looked horrible because I am heavily invested in Essendon, Carlton, and the Gold Coast, and Melbourne. So it's not looking great for me, and my thing is basically trade through it. I'm going to trade through. I held one boost specifically for this week.
This is incredible.
One boost remaining. So I'm going to go absolutely ham with 4 trades this week. That's going to be my entire vibe for this bye week brutality that I'm going to deal with just to get to 18 on the field because that's all that matters. Get your 18 out there and it's going to be all right.
I suppose my advice would be try and deal with the next 2 weeks maybe as a collective.
Yep.
And so you don't want to pull your team apart and ruin it just to get 18 on the park this week and then you've suddenly, you've only got 12 next week. So maybe try and balance it out over the 2 and knowing that a lot of people are going to be in the same situation. If you can get 18 scoring players this week, that's great. I wouldn't be going nuts to get a 19th or a 20th.
Yep. Yeah, and that's what we were saying, before the bye started, where you see them as a block of 4 weeks where, you don't worry too much about your rank going up and down or, your league matchups during these 4 weeks, individually, but as a block, you want to come out of it, hopefully ahead with your team in a better spot. But don't go chasing those week by week results, I don't think. So, make sure whatever you do this week doesn't completely undermine what you do next week.
I like it. It's just like TLC said, don't go chasing waterfalls or bye week scores. I'm pretty sure they wrote that in the song, wasn't it? Radio remix.
That was the second chorus.
Yep. Top targets of the round 13 bye. There were only the 2 teams on the bye this week. It was Freo, it was Port. So they do have some pretty interesting names now, Al. This is kind of the fun part. Luke Ryan at 666K. It's an interesting number. The devil's number. Off we go. Break even at 135. He's cruising along no matter what anyway. Jordan Clark is a fascinating one. 580. Break even to 79. Has been crushing it. Let's go. Caleb Sarong. Break even at 176. He's priced at 628,000. Break even. The 176 one. Sarong, you don't actually go, oh, geez, it's a bit too high. You're like, well, he might come close. Who knows? Then you got the Port Adelaide power duo of Zach Butters at 630K with a break-even of 159 and Connor Rozee, the most handsome man out there, 466,000 with a break-even of 182. I've already jumped off the C Rozee train, hoping that he'll drop dramatically and might just bring him in at some point later on in the season. Al, who are we looking at in these top targets? What do you think?
Yeah, I put the break-evens down because it is interesting that a lot of them have very high numbers. I put the break-evens down there because it is interesting that a lot of them are really high, and you probably would ideally wait another week or two and get these guys a bit cheaper, but just given the timing, they're coming off the bye, you're probably just going to have to pay up, especially like you say for a Sarong or a Butters. They're not going to probably miss it by too much, and I think the scoring will be worth it. Ryan, if you don't have him, he's the number one scorer in SuperCoach this year, so he would be the top priority. But I do like Jordan Clark as a bit of a point of difference. He's got a 3-round average of 137, and he is a little bit cheaper than all those other guys. So if you want to bring in a defender fresh off his bye, I don't mind him as an option. Probably just the only red flag would be they play the Swans in a couple of weeks. James Jordan's been doing some tagging roles. He might be in the gun there, but I do like him. And Connor Rozee, probably not this week, but yeah, with that 182 break even, he's one you can wait on. Give it another couple of weeks. Maybe he's 400,000, and then he could be an ideal little bargain in the midfield to finish off your team, maybe after the buys.
Yeah, I think it is interesting that he brought up the break evens, and I think Sarong and Butters are both projected to go for around 130 anyway. So even if you have them in, if you wait, they're going to drop a little bit, but maybe not too much anyway. Not as much as you might expect.
And I think you'd still rather than have the upgrade and potentially lose the 20K or 30K on that upgrade, because you'd rather the points on the field this week, especially during the buys, than that extra little bit of cash.
I like it. Are there any names there, Patch, that you like more than others? Like, I love the Jordan Clark point of difference.
I was really tempted to get on Jordan Clark very early on in the year, and was put off by some Freo supporters saying Heath Chapman would impact his scores. That's obviously not happened. And Heath Chapman's fitness is also, a bit up and down as well. I probably would have preferred him at just a little bit cheaper. There's just that little bit of risk, I think, in that he hasn't done it before and he's broken out, outside the conventional ways that players break out. So I'm a little bit cautious, but I do think he's a very interesting one, a very good option if you can swing him and you've still got a spot in your back line. Ryan, as you mentioned, is the standout for me. He's just consistent, done it. If you don't have him, I'd be moving a lot of, maybe not heaven and earth, but some large mountains to try and squeeze him in. I just think he's the guy you really need to have if you're going to, win your leagues or win your matchups.
Nice.
Towards the back end of the season.
Which brings up the question. This is the third talking point going into this week. Can we break the rule on no sideways trades? I think, obviously, there's a couple of names out there where you're like, can you see the cliff there? Going to head into this bye. Clayton Oliver's a big name, obviously sitting there going, well, do I just cut my losses and move on from him right now when they're on a bye? There's obviously the names of like Tom Stewart, Nick Martin. Oh, God. Could I trade him twice in a year? We're about to find out. Took Miller. And, of course, Harry Mackay. Just because that simple idea like that, F6 spot, he is still in the mix, but at the same time, like with the Blues on a bye and question marks floating around for the other sort of, forward spots, it's probably easier just to move on from him now, right? So, I don't know. What do you reckon, Al?
Well, it is the golden rule of SuperCoach that you don't sideways trade at primos, you saw earlier in the year people got off a Jordan Dawson, got off an LDU, and now they're flying. So you would have regretted that trade and it didn't really improve your team. But maybe this is the week we can throw that rule out the window, especially when you're talking about someone like a Clayton Oliver, who's been decent value. If you brought him in for, 400K, that was a huge bargain. But he's averaged 91. It's a fair way below if, you're playing someone who's got a Sarong or who's got even an LDU or Dawson in those spots. So this could be the week to do it, especially when we're scrambling to get to 18 players on the field. I think Oliver, yes, I would tick that off. Tom Stewart, definitely. I'm really not sure what's happened to him. 76 and 76 his last two rounds, getting some attention from opposition forward, negative taggers kind of thing. So
I think they've finally figured out how to drag him out of position as well. So we just can't get into the right spot to be intercepting. So to counter that, they push him up the ground, they push him out of position a bit. He's just not getting anywhere near.
And you've got Max Holmes back there now, is doing really well. So
they've got Guthrie and Holmes that can kind of fill that void a bit. So bad times for anyone owning Tom Stewart.
I reckon Geelong should at least look at going, well, we do have so many dudes. Everybody start growing mustaches.
Just disguise it.
We're all going to disguise you, and just so they're going to try to tag Tom Stewart, they're going to have to look for his number because we've already got like headbands and long hair
So
galore.
he needs to like get the whole headband.
Maybe he should shave his mustache, and away we go. I don't know, but I'm just thinking. There's just got to think outside the box here, Geelong. Just saying, we've got to save this Supercoach year for Tom Stewart somehow. But otherwise, I think you look at some of these names and you don't want to, but you might have your hand forced this week, right?
I think Took's an interesting one, 58 against the Saints, tagged by Marcus Windhager. We've mentioned taggers a few times in this show already, so averaging 96 5-round. He's a borderline. What is your take on Nick Martin? I know you said you didn't really want to talk about it, but has been going really well this year. You know, the switch to defence really has worked, and, you know, he's getting some really good numbers, averaging 103 for the year, which is sort of fine for, your sixth defender maybe, but it's only 90 in his last 5 rounds. So they threw him forward on Sunday night, which sort of worked for a quarter, but then he went out of the game, which can happen when you're sort of stuck in the forward line. So
especially an Essendon forward line.
Where do you see him going forward? Is he a top 8 sort of defender now?
I think he still floats around. Like, he'll finish as a top, 8 defender based on what he's done already this year. But looking forward from Nick Martin, I certainly wouldn't be averse to trading him out. If you need to trade a premium out to get enough on field this week, Nick Martin would probably be towards the top of the list of players I would be trading out. I think Jordan Ridley's eating into a fair bit of his, cutting his lunch a little bit down back in terms of, just a few points, a few intercepts, enough there that he's no longer able to make up for the just awful kicking efficiency that he's got, where he's getting a 30 touches, 35 touches, and still only scoring kind of 105, 110, which is a really worrying sign. And, I remember flagging this round in round 4 or 5 that, he's scoring very well, but I'm still tempted to trade him out despite him scoring 150 off 45 touches or whatever it was. I don't know. I don't see him racking up the bulk numbers, but I also, at this stage, will probably hold him because I'm not in too much strife this week, and I think he'll potentially end up as that cover on the bench if I can swing it. But yeah, I'm not expecting him to average anything like the first half of the year through the back half.
They've also got West Coast straight after the bye as well, right?
They do.
One of those interesting ones where you go, all right, that's at Marvel. He might have a pretty handy role in that game. Then they have 3 straight to the G, where it's against Geelong, Collingwood and Melbourne. And that gets a little bit hairier, I reckon. So and his role we might have a little bit more clarity about his role by round 16 or something, but at that point it might be too late. So who knows? Yeah.
And, they might, depending on what's happening with the wing at Essendon, they might push him up to the wing. With Redmond back, they, what are they doing with Jaymz? There's a little bit of movement at the Dons that, I don't know, he's probably the most versatile guy they've got. So, and I think he's better for Essendon as a half forward or a winger than he is as a defender and a more valuable. So as the Essendon fan in me wants, the Dons to make that switch, but I know the Supercoach in me kind of want. I don't know. I'm just. I'm conflicted.
You're breaking him. You're tearing me apart.
2 goals in the third quarter, but it probably should have been 4. Like, he missed a couple of easy ones as well. So that's sort of just the frustrating thing. And then when he's given was such a Nick Martin thing to do, and he gave a 50 away by trying to kick the ball back to.
Oh, and then missed the target and got the 50 paid. Yeah, he's just.
It can be a tough watch sometimes. But I think he's not going to be atrocious for you. No. But if you could find the money and, it works for you to turn him into a Luke Ryan this week, you're probably not going to regret it.
Yep. No, I'd certainly not, considering some of the really good defensive options coming out this week. Dan Houston, another one as well, who's been a little bit underwhelming the last month, but, had that one game where he kicked 3 goals and had 25 touches and shows that he's still, someone that is in the conversation for that top 6, top 8 defender as well. So wouldn't be averse to trading Martin. Nice. Or Oliver, for that matter, for the reasons you mentioned.
And for Harry Mackay, I'm jumping right off. Simple as that. I think he's...
Well, who are you trading Mackay to?
Yeah, that's the only thing, because the other forwards is
open. You're basically waiting on Isaac Rankine to come back at that point and then hoping that you get the 80,000 or something to jump up, because I think Rankine's still around that, 552. Harry's now down to 422, so it gets very hairy very quickly, I think.
Because I think Harry's a really interesting trade-in option next week.
And Charlie Kerner's the other one too. I think both of those coming off Carlton's buy. When you're looking for that,
both of them pretty cheap.
F6,
F7, if you've got someone you can, swing and potentially move around. to put the emergency on.
It's Carlton's draw for the back end of the season.
It gets a lot easier. There's but it's like a very roller coastery sort of up and down. Like they've got Geelong, but then they've got Richmond, GWS at NG, then Dogs, North Melbourne, Port, Collingwood, Hawthorn, West Coast.
The fixture is also cursed.
Yeah, it's a weird one. So I'd sort of probably be steering clear of Harry just because I don't know. Like I feel like the backup ruckman role that he sort of has popped off on the odd occasion with Tom DeConing, just the solo ruck. It hasn't really added to his scores too much in the last few weeks. So I don't know. It's a weird, strange situation. Speaking of strange situations, let's go to the Phantom and talk some Bubble Boys because it's not great right after this. Right, it's what you've all been waiting for. Finally, we bring on the man who's going to take us to SuperCoach Nirvana. Like he's, I don't know, a combination of Dave Grohl, Chris Novoselic, and of course, Kurt Cobain. He's out there in parts unknown. It's the Phantom talking Bubble Boys. Phantom, what is going on? Is this the Billy Dowling Appreciation Hour or what? How are we feeling?
You've taken the introductions to a new level. I appreciate that. We're in the thick of the bye rounds. You've still delivered. I think it should be Billy Dowling Appreciation Round, but maybe not for the reasons it should be for what he did on Thursday night, but maybe because we've got nothing else to talk about.
This is the conundrum we find ourselves in, Al. Like, how are you looking at this week? I mean, what do you want to plumb the depths of Phantom's knowledge about?
Well, I mean, ideally we need cheapies, obviously, if we're going to make trades. And the ideal play is to bring in a bargain basement player who's already had their bye, but I can't see any of those anywhere. So we're just scratching for players who will at least play this weekend, and at least there's two of those, but unfortunately they both have the bye in round 15. So I guess you need to try and weigh up, what do your numbers look like both weeks, or do we just have to grab them and that's a round 15 problem?
I think you definitely got to weigh up over the next couple of weeks. Hopefully you've planned out what your team looks like, what your trades might be next week as well. And like we said on this show and the Phantom's Lair before, it's not all about trading for your bottom end. Still try to improve the top end of your team. Trading for a rookie or two at the bottom end of your 18 might not be worth it in the long run. It costs you a trade. What it might get you, 30, 40 points. It's probably not going to be worth it. But you mentioned Billy Dowling. We mentioned Billy Dowling. I was there on Thursday night. It was pretty good. 9 marks. Turned the ball over a little bit early, so it was playing catch-up. Almost won the game for the Crows in the end. Played half-forward on the wing. No midfield time or no centre bounce action for Billy Dowling, but you still think he stays in that Crow side. They need to keep the kids in. So he's a good option again, but only if you can cover it the week later, or if it's not going to affect you the following week in round 15, you can't really change it anyway, then take the number this week, because I think he's going to stay in and make some money, and that's important, especially if you've still got 1 or 2 upgrades left to make.
I guess that's the key thing for Dowling, right? Like, do you think he sticks in the team? And I mean, you're the man on the ground with all the Crows knowledge there, Phantom. So, I mean, is this the sort of thing where you can look at and go, look, he should be all right for at least 4 or 5 weeks? What do you think?
I think so. 17 touches. He got in some nice spots. He's a good runner. He runs to space well, finds space, gets the footy. He's done that at all levels he's played at. He did it again, especially in the first quarter of his AFL debut on Thursday night. They'll tear the place down, I think, down there at West Lakes if Matthew Nicks drops Billy Dowling after what's been going on over there the past couple of months. So some big names coming back into the Crow side, but you think, well, I hope that Billy Dowling should stay in post-bye.
I like that. And your man, Al, you were all over him on the live stream. Nathan Kruger, the man out of absolutely nowhere, dominated. And I don't know, the thing is he's only played the one game, same as Billy Dowling. So this does make it pretty tricky. You're going to be basically going that extra week early. How are you looking at the Krugs?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think I'd be keen to hear the Phantom's take on his long-term security kick. 3 goals on King's birthday and did look really good. Obviously, Collingwood has a heap of injuries. He's ruck forward, which is nice, especially if people still maybe have a Jordan Sweet or someone sitting there. You can bring him in. Again, we'll be missing in round 15. And then what happens after that? I'm probably less confident on him than Dowling going forward, because we probably don't need these guys to make heaps of money in the sense that, by the time they've cashed up, it'll be, fair way down the track. But we're probably going to want them as bench cover. You don't want to come out of the buys with nobody on your bench who's playing. So I think a Dowling sitting there could actually be quite handy as cover in the run home. But I'm not so sure about Kruger. But what do you think on his stocks down at Collingwood?
Yeah, it's a good question. Obviously, Brody Meyer check to come back into Mason Cox at some point, obviously a bit longer term. But Nathan Kruger, he hasn't played for so long. We talk about forgotten men. We say it in SuperCoach terms as a sort of a throwaway line, but this bloke is really the forgotten man at the Pies and in SuperCoach. I'd be a little bit wary. I agree with you. I think he's just below the Billy Dowling in the sort of longer term job security issues, but keep an eye on what Colin would say about their injuries. They've got the bye. Does Myercheck come back in after the bye, in round 15? Does Kruger's spot go then? I'm not sure. Working in his favour probably too is they've backed him in for so long. They finally got him on the park. He's played well. It'd be pretty harsh for Craig McRae to sort of pull the pin on him now. So hopefully that works in our favour.
Nice one. Is there anyone else that's vaguely crossing your radar here, Phantom? Because it does feel very, very, very thin on the ground.
It is very thin. We spoke about Toby McMullen last week on the show coming off the bye. He was sub again, as we expected. Came on, scored 50 points. So he's done okay coming on as a sub twice for the Giants. Still 157K. I mean, if he starts in their 22 this week, then he could be an option. 157K forward. One to keep an eye on, depending on what the Giants will do there. But there's not a lot else. We need one. We need someone to come from the clouds. I mean, if you went with Kieran Strawn, bit of a groin injury, got subbed out, could Rob come back in? Riley O'Brien, Brian for the Crows, probably. So you're probably not going to go there either. Again, we've spoken about, I think, for the last month, got to think about other ways to make your money.
There is, Ryan Angwin for the Giants as well. He's sort of out there. He's played the last couple of games. Had a 98 against the Cats and 41 down there in Tassie against Hawthorn. So
222.
So 222. It's like that one sort of really annoying, tricky price, but there is at least a price rise in his future of at least probably that sort of 25K with a break even of not a giant one either, right? I actually had that right in front of me. Now it's completely gone. Good job, me. -8. So Angwin, like with all the injuries with the Giants, it's like that price point's a bit annoying, but would you look at him?
Maybe. You've got to consider it. And then someone like Jai Menzie as well, coming off the bye, obviously not playing this week. Essendon played a bit behind the footy in the loss to Carlton, 209K as well for him. So similar sort of field to Angwin, obviously not on the bye this week. On the bye this week. So it could be handy come round 15 if he stays in the side and if that role continues. So just a name to keep in mind when you're looking at your 2-week trade plan.
Nice one. All right, and Al, have you got another name there in mind?
Well, one that I've just seen pop up today is maybe Jed Buslinger at the Bulldogs. A couple of injuries there to some key defenders. I mean, he's a tall defender and another Bulldogs. I've already got about 4 Bulldogs rookies that I'm going to have to deal with next week, so I'm not sure I want to bring another one in, but he might give us something, I guess, this week. And I don't know if you can tell us much about Saad El Hawley. I think he would pronounce it. Mid-season draft pick, 102K at Essendon. I'm sorry, he had some great stats on the weekend. Very keen if he comes in. But as you say, the Bombers have the bye this week, so one to watch maybe for round 15.
I think so. He's definitely a name to keep in mind. I think I prefer to consider him. Jed Buslinger plays this week. They've got the bye coming up. But again, key defender, young, raw key defender still after a couple of years on the list. Probably not going to go there. But Jacob Blight as well for Richmond, first emergency on Thursday night. The 102K guys. It's both ready-made options. Both were picked ready to play from the State League. So we've spoken about Jacob Blight before. Fingers crossed over the next few weeks that we get a couple of these guys.
Nice one. Well, there you go. It's pretty fit on the ground for all things Bubble Boys, but we appreciate the Phantom jumping on. Anyway, cheers to that, Phantom. You did a great job with the very sparse populated.
Go Billy Dowling.
Love this. Catch up. All right, how good was that from the Phantom? Now it's time for a brand new segment. We lovingly call this, put a lot of time and thought into this title. It's called Stats with Al. That's right, Al. dig into some stats for us, would you? We've got our very own, Stats Boy has popped up on this show here and there as well, but you are the stats man, and you've dug into some awesome stats at the lower levels. Can you give us a bit of insight?
Well, I've got some great numbers from Champion Data, and you can get online, Code Sports and all the mastheads to check these out in a couple of days' time when it all goes live. I think there's about 198 names on the list of players on AFL list who played in state leagues on the weekend in the VFL, Samford, Waffle, and how they went in terms of SuperCoach scores. So we just mentioned Saad El Hawley with the Phantom as a possible rookie we could look at from the Bombers, who had a great game on the weekend coming in through the mid-season draft. He had 27 disposals, 8 marks, 4 goals, 148 SuperCoach that equated to, and I think he came off in the last quarter with just to manage a little ankle issue. So we'll keep an eye on that. Hopefully he'll be fine after their bye. Some other numbers that jumped out at me, we mentioned Jed Buslinger as well, 133 SuperCoach, so it's not bad for a key defender if he does come in from the Bulldogs. Jacob Blight, Richmond's mid-season draft pick, 101 points, so he's another 102K guy ready to go if we need him. Hugo Garcia scored 98, so he's sort of thereabouts if the Saints ever decide to pick him again, but after another famous win, don't know that they need him at the moment. And
they just need some injuries. They've just had no injuries all season, so it's just, I don't know.
Yeah, they haven't been forced into too many changes. And one name just to keep on the radar, I had to look up who this guy was, Lawson Humphreys at Geelong, a classic Geelong draft pick that they picked from absolutely nowhere, kicked the winning goal against Sydney in the VFL, scored 148 SuperCoach points, and he's a defender, cheapy defender for us. So if he could come in after the bye for the Cats, that'd be pretty handy for us as well.
Yeah, he's a great story too. They picked him out of, I think it was like not even state league, it was below that, some sort of rural WA league.
Div 12 Resies.
Yeah, pretty much out of, I think it was Kalgoorlie or somewhere middle of WA where everyone they drafted him and everyone was like, who? Wait, what? On no other radars anywhere. It was fantastic.
Good stuff.
There you go.
Some pretty good stats there, Al. I don't mind this.
But yeah, full list online.
Does Jacob Blight come in, do you reckon?
I guess that's probably matchup dependent, isn't it? So who have we got? Hawthorn this week? Marby or Chol down there? I don't know if they've got a heap of tall
No, Kalshadi is certainly not.
Yeah, so maybe not this week. Maybe after. So Richmond's got the bye round 15 as well, which everybody seems to who has promising rookies around. But
how are they 15 teams?
Maybe so that game when I'm looking, I think Carlton has Richmond in about round 17. So that'd be the week I'd maybe be looking at a Charlie Curnow type, but maybe that's when they need a Jacob Blight.
Yep.
Nice. All right, time for the quick fire round. Very quick. Let's do it. Is Alex Sexton a top 6 forward, Patch?
No, because I don't have him and I don't want him to be.
Nice one. He might end up being a top 6 defender for me as well, actually. Al?
I think he is going to be my F6. We'll talk about having a finished team maybe next week and he'll be sitting there, but we'll see how he goes with Will Powell due back after the Gold Coast bye from his club suspension. So we'll keep an eye on that. But as we're talking about, F6 is pretty wide open field at the moment. So happy to have him sitting there for the moment.
Nice one. Zach Fisher, is he a top 3 forward, Patch?
I hate to admit it, from top 4.
Top 4, right? Because you got Haney, Zorko and Flanders.
I don't think he's overtaking any of them from here on out, but I reckon he might have that 4th spot.
I think the more sort of pertinent question is like, does he just stay in my team from here on out? And I feel like the answer is yes.
Well, are we going to have enough trades to get rid of him if he does start stinking it up is the question / worry / concern / But yes, I think at this stage, he's the guy I'm trying to bring in this week.
Al?
Well, he's 3rd at the moment on 5-round averages, 117 behind Heaney and Flanders. Probably, Zorko wouldn't be too far behind, but I think he can be.
Bad for 3 weeks, so
yeah. I mean, Cheesel's not going back to defence, is he? So I'm still not sure what's happening with McKercher. So at the moment, he's got that role.
Zorko heard that I traded him in, and he's like, "All right, now time to stink it up. Perfect, let's go."
I said it would happen. I said it would happen, and it did.
Is it too late for whoa, Errol? Can you still bring in Errol Gulden? Al?
Yes, you can. 560K is still a pretty good price. Obviously, if you brought him in last week, that was amazing. But I still like him at that price point. I think he can, match it with, say a Josh Dunkley type that a lot of people brought in last week. LDU I got for a little bit more. But he was very good.
They have an interesting game as well. They're playing Adelaide this week, and the wheels might just fall off Adelaide, right? Like you have no idea after what happened last week. So that's a fascinating setup. I love Errol, obviously. 157 this week against the Cats, 131 against the Dogs the week before. He just feels like he's really firing up. We saw it the second half of last year as well, right? Like this could just be happening again. Patch?
I mean, legally, there's nothing stopping you. Yes, as everything else said, just...
Another question that didn't put on here is, Luke Parker, Does he ever get back in this
Does he
team?
make the team? Yeah.
What happens when Callum Mills is available?
Oh, it's like, can you play your captain? Question mark. We're about to find out.
Well, they're going to win the premiership so easily, aren't they? Just why are we bothering?
I love it. Is TDK, my beloved Tom de Koning, is he a solo ruck option here? Just like basically as your ruck too. What do you think? Help.
Looking at the 3-round averages for ruckman, he's number one at 139. And this list is pretty crazy. We've got Max Gawn up there. We love him. The Nank, Toby Nankervis is number 3. You got Oscar McInerney. Grundy is going along nicely. Darcy Cameron. Tim English all the way down at number 9.
Whoa.
So that'd be a little bit annoying if you paid up for him. Just the TDK thing is what happens with Mark Pitney? Does he come back in? I mean, the way he's playing, they probably don't need him, but he's scoring points in sort of really interesting, unusual way for a ruckman. He doesn't get many hit-outs, but he's just winning a heap of the ball, a heap of contested possessions.
Clearance king. Like, it's awesome
it's been incredible. So I don't know this year, but definitely be on my ruck radar for next year.
Nice one. Patch, you feeling it?
I'm going to say it again. Don't trade in your ruck line. Stop doing it. Sweet, Meek, Moyle, Grundy, like it hasn't worked for anyone. Strawn, stop doing it. He could be the best player in the universe and I would not move anyone out to bring him in at this stage because it's just to stop mucking around in your rucks. If you've got Ned Moyle and you need to trade up to someone and don't have enough cash to get to Gawn or whatever, maybe, sure, but you dig up, stupid. Just stop trading in your ruck line. Don't just set and forget. Next year, just stop. Stop it.
All right, the last quickfire round. How many trades do we have left? Patch.
Nope.
Nice one.
10 before hitting the trade button this week, which I have and used 3, and now it's down to 7.
Yeah, I've got 11. Planning on maybe only 1 or 2 trades this week. I think maybe next week we'll go into a little bit more depth on how many we think we'll have after the buys and where does that leave us. How many do you want to have after the buys?
Al, I'd like to buy a trade. I'd tell you how much. I've got 20 in my wallet. Is that going to do it?
We'll talk after the show.
Yeah, okay.
Al will do a lot of things for $20. All right, I've got 11 left as well, but I've got a boost left as well, so I might rip off 4 this week. So, captain's call. How are we feeling this week? Vice captain, obviously, I think for this week you've got a pretty easy setup. I think Zorko is a fascinating one against the Saints on Friday night.
Halfbacks versus St Kilda.
Exactly.
Sam Flanders. Bodie Hewland
ripped it off. Like, what did he go? 150. Absolutely.
157.
Awesome. Yep. So Zorko's my lock and load for the VC there.
I think he's the one.
Outside of that, it gets a little bit thin on the ground for me. I think if I do trade in for the Bont or if I look at Gulden at Adelaide Oval, but yeah, at the moment, that's where I'm at.
It's tricky. I think Nick Daicos would have been the standout, but I mean, we think he will play, but maybe a little bit sore. Does that bother you in that game?
Maybe, yeah. I mean, on the flip side, outside of Daicos, the Pies don't really have a first choice midfield. Harry Sheasel, maybe.
Well, the other thing is the Pies that I was doing some research on the way and it just popped into my head that halfbacks tend to score well against Collingwood. Could you put the C on Zach Fisher?
Oh, may God have mercy on the soul of anyone doing that. But if you did, if you've got one of the Sydney midfielders, I mean, most people now have Heaney, but if you've got Errol or the Chad, they could, as you said, James, beat up on the Crows. If they don't bring Riley O'Brien back and play Strawn again, Grundy?
Oof.
Grundy?
Away from the SCG.
Well, I mean, that's the caveat. But if he's playing against, Chris Burgess for 2.5 quarters, like Nank was on Thursday night, maybe. But yeah, Zorko is.
Well, the cool thing is,
away.
There's lots of good. Well, you've got Bont versus Sarong as well Saturday afternoon, which is an interesting setup. Butters, I don't know about that GWS game as well. It's always going to be strange.
Tom Green.
There is one big game though on the weekend. Would you consider chucking it on for the name of games? It's a game of names. Dusty's playing a pretty specific fancy game this week, Al. And this is where the game of names, the name game, comes in. This week, will Dusty ton up in his 300th? What do you reckon, Al?
What do you think I'm going to say on this one? Have to back in the great man. His highest score this year is 87 SuperCoach points. But I did look up last year. Richmond had a bit of a build up to a big send-off to Jack Riewoldt in round 23. Dusty came to the party with 31 disposals, 3 goals and 158 SuperCoach points.
Is that more or less than 100 for those playing along at home?
So I'm backing the great man in. I think he can get 25, couple of goals, easily top the ton in his 300th game. Hawthorn, not the easiest opponent right now, but Tigers back in some winning form.
That is crazy that he's not tonned up this year. I'm still going to go the under there, obviously. I think Patch might have won last week. I think the over-under was the goals for the Mackays, and I think we had Harry over 2.5.
We did.
That did not happen. So
no, that's because Ben shoved his brother's head into the dirt and he went off for
exactly.
Most of a quarter.
That's what brothers do, man.
Exactly. If I don't care how I win, if I've got to play dirty, then
nice.
There'll be stuff under the fingernails.
All right, there you go. So Dusty, is he going to ton up in his 300th? Al reckons yes. I say no. I don't feel good about that. I want him to ton up. That'd be awesome. Let's go, Dusty. Finally, before we go, what's your Monday trade? It's actually Tuesday that we're taping this on because of the King's birthday.
Well, back to the Tuesday trade.
Tuesday trades, Tuesday moves. Let's do it. Mine is a very straight swap from Petrarca to Gulden at the moment and then sort of digging around to see what I can move on from Comben, probably down to Billy Dowling, trying to figure out if there's another way that I can at least sort of build up from that. Probably my back line. We might even see Vlosten finally move out of my back line. So that'd be nice. I'm just saying, because he stinks. Pat, you got a Tuesday move?
Zach Fisher in, and I don't quite know how because I'm about 20K off it, which means I either, I can do Dowling in, Kruger in, and then someone bad in as a primo, or I can do, Dowling in, Fisher in, and then a 102K guy. Or I have to move on like a Harvey Harrison, who I don't want to just yet because he's playing North Melbourne this weekend. Could kick another 3 or 4.
What did he score in the week? He was great yesterday.
Yeah, he scored 76, 78. He scored, somebody will fact check me on this. He was good. I don't know. I've still got to try and figure out who to cull.
It's a lot of time spent in front of the trade machine this week, Al. What do you reckon? What's your Monday, Tuesday move?
Well, at the moment, it's sort of fairly simple. Probably just Jake Rogers down to Billy Dowling. Just gives me one extra this week. Only makes 70 grand or something, but that sort of sets me up for the next week where I can start cashing in a Lockie Sullivan or maybe a Fraser, some of these guys, and get a decent upgrade and maybe get another primo in the back line, and that'll just about finish my team. I could try and make that all happen a week earlier, potentially. Maybe Jordan Clark could help me out there, and then that brings Darcy Wilson into the equation. Do I want to trade him out? I think I'm sitting on 18 available this week. If Daicos plays, if Lockie Sullivan holds his spot in the Collingwood team, which was looking pretty shaky for a while yesterday, but he came good a bit at the end, so hopefully he stays in. So I'm reluctant to trade out someone who is actually playing this week, but that cash is a bit of a worry. So maybe I could move on him early, but probably not looking to make any massive moves this week, given I already have Ryan, Sarong, Butters, these guys, which would be your primary targets coming off last week's bye.
Kruger could also score big this week as well.
Yeah, against North.
Against North, maybe. I don't know.
Yep, that's an option.
I'm going to kick the tires on Kruger myself because he was so much fun to watch yesterday.
He was, actually.
Either way, that is it for the round 14 preview. Remember to subscribe to SuperCoach Plus to take your game to the next level. Follow all things Code Sports for the latest AFL SuperCoach news and analysis. And if you haven't already, leave a rating review on Apple, Spotify, subscribe to Code Sports and YouTube. You'll get notified whenever new episodes drop. How good is that? It's really good, I reckon. I'll tell you. For all the latest news and fun gear, smash the AFL Today show. Thank you to Patch in the Fight MND beanie.
Hello.
Good job. And Al. Great job there, Al.
Thank you, Jim.
It's good to have you back, I'll tell you. And, of course, thanks to Phantom. I've been Jaymz Clements. Have a great week and happy super coaching.